Well, a pleasant good afternoon and welcome to 5 at 5 right here on Cloud 9 on ACT and The Voice. I am Sheldon Yearwood and thank you for joining us. Our top 5 stories at 5 p.m. Well, a video circulating on Facebook of prison officers assaulting prisoners is being seen as barbaric by some. Some would even go as far to say they are being treated like runaway slaves. However, others have shown no remorse. Nevertheless, it has raised many eyebrows as into what is the purpose of prison life, rehabilitation or something else. This video surfaced on the heels of prison officials being praised after their diligence stopped what they claim was an attempted jailbreak of a top priority prisoner on Monday morning. According to prison officials, a group of police officers showed up at the Port of Spain State Prison armed with a warrant to take Raji Ali to the Arima Magistrates Court for an ongoing matter where he's charged with possession of a lap carcass outside the hunting season in 2014. Ali is currently in prison for allegedly murdering Special Prosecutor Dana Sitahal SC and conspiracy to murder radio personality Kevon Savary. Following the illegal removal of Vicky Budram from prison last year, using what appeared to be legitimate court documents, prison officers have been vigilant. Yesterday, in a direct response to the attempted jailbreak, prison officer cornered off parts of Frederick Street and searched the prison. Prison Commissioner Gerald Wilson yesterday denied that the search was in relation to the attempted jailbreak, but was a routine search at the prison. However, a prison officer informed 5 at 5 that the search was as a result of an alleged breach in security that may have been linked to the attempted plot to free Ali, where it is reported that several items were in the possession of these prisoners. Well, we'll deal with that after the break. In some other news, 110 loyal workers have been sent home by the Caribbean Nitrogen Company, along with 300 additional workers indirectly connected to the company. This as they announced today the forced closure of its ammonia plant due to the termination of its gas supply by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago. Commenting on the planned shutdown, Jerome Duque, CEO of CNC, said, quote, "We had no choice but to shut down the plant to ensure the well-being of our people and protect our investment. Unfortunately, this action by NGC will negatively affect the future of our 110 loyal workers." So now you saw where I got the loyal workers from. It wasn't my quote. Duque stated that the situation is highly regrettable given that CNC has been in a dialogue with the National Gas Company for almost a year. He said CNC had even accepted multiple interim extensions of a gas supply until yesterday at a detrimental cost to itself. These extensions, Duque added, were implemented to facilitate further discussions between CNC and NGC to agree on the terms of a long-term gas supply contract. The CNCC also referred to the government's intervention in the matter, acknowledging the efforts of the government to assist in the resolution of this matter and the key role that it plays maintaining the stability and sustainability of this vital sector in the national interest. In some other news at this time, an ex-police officer who served in the police service for 26 years, unfortunately, will now have added to his resume marijuana possession. The officer, Yolan Lashley, 57, appeared before Simongal Ramsaran at the Couva Magistrate Court on the charge on Tuesday of 1.1 kilograms of marijuana. He was charged by PC Ramuta. When the matter was called, Lashley pleaded not guilty to the offense. The 57-year-old man was granted bail at $150,000 to be approved by a clerk of the peace, and the matter was adjourned to February 20th. Lashley was held during a police exercise on Monday. He was arrested at his business place in Carly Bay Road, Couva, after a team of officers led by Sergeant Ali received information which led them to the area. In some more crime news, a man who had been charged in relation to allegations of rape and robbery was found dead in Princestown this morning. He has been identified as Marvin Johnson of Macano Street, Princestown. Police said around 1 a.m. on Wednesday, officers from the Princestown CID were conducting routine patrols in the area when, upon nearing Lothian's Branch Road, they observed what appeared to be the body of a man lying on the ground. The officers ran over to assist, only to observe that the man was shot in the head and neck. The area was cornered off immediately and crime scene investigators visited the scene. His body was viewed by a district medical officer and then ordered removed to the Forensic Science Center in St. James, where an autopsy will be performed. In international news, it's been all over the world. This verdict, ex-U.S. Olympic gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar has been sentenced to 40 to 175 years following testimony from over 160 women who accused him of abuse. I will carry your words with me for the rest of my days, Nassar turned and told his victims in the courtroom today. Nassar, 54, pleaded guilty to multiple counts of sexual assault against girls and young women, including Olympians. Here is now the sentencing by Judge Rosemary Aquila.
175 years, which is 2,100 months. I've just signed your death warrant. I need everyone to be quiet. I still have contempt powers. I told you I'm not nice. I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger.
She further told Nassar during the sentencing he will be in darkness for the rest of his life. She added that she would not send her dogs to the former sports doctor. Wow. Then she said this to him: as much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it was my honor and privilege to sentence you because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. She also said to him, from when I was looking at the taping, that she is giving him his death penalty. And at 175 years in prison, that's just about right. That is a death penalty. So he has a lot of time to repent, of course, make his life right before the Lord. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to touch on our very special encore presentation today and tomorrow, and just kind of touch on some of the stories making news today right here on Cloud 9 on ACTN. This has been 5 at
This is Apostle Judy Karim of the Greater Love Christian Center, inviting you to join us every second and last Tuesday of the month on ACTN, The Voice, as we bring to you the Word of God that will challenge you, bless you, and take you into your greatest life ever.
Welcome back to Cloud 9 on ACTN, The Voice. How are you doing this afternoon? Really glad being with you again. And of course, by popular request, Many people, for those who saw it, and of course those who just saw the promo on social media and on the network, were asking, when we're showing it again. There was no specific date or time that we were going to do it, but I decided based on the feedback that we're going to do it this week, that being this evening, and tomorrow, that's the series Where is the Church, where we interviewed Nicole Balancing Holder, Reverend Nicole Balancing Holder, and Reverend Benjamin Agard. He, of course, is the National Elder Director of the Open Bible Standard Churches, and we all know, of course, Reverend Nicole Balancing Holder, marvelous ministry, evangelism, you name it, she's right there. And they both give very, very, I want to say, honest, passionate views, biblical foundation as well, and even some of their personal grievances when it comes to this whole topic of where is the church. So I'll get into that a little more before we go to the first interview. What I want to do at this time is just sort of elaborate on some of these news stories that we had today. I want to touch first of all with the mayhem in the prison. Now, in the studio where I'm at right now, we have lights. I mean, you would not be able to see or interact with me or any other, presenter, as the case may be, without what we have, the technology, right? It's not like somebody behind me or in front of me holding a flambeau, There's no flambeaus here, or the light a fire and piece of wood and you just get light. No, that's not it. It's light. Likewise, the cameras are not like Flintstone where, a bird is picking on the stone and at rapid speed to create a picture. No. So tell me this, right? Why in this day and age, after the first blunder, I saw someone made a reference to it, and I'm glad they did because it ran through my mind as well. Why after the blunder with Madam, what's her name again? Vicky Boudram. How you going, Vicky? Nice. She can't see many, I would say. Right. After that blunder, you don't think we need to have a little more upgrade when it comes to these issues of transferring prisoners from one place to the next? Maybe a computer base, maybe some sort of, I don't know. There are various ways. If there's a transfer of a prisoner, you have a computer database whereby the information is sent directly from the court or from the commissioner of police. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, there is no middleman to bring no paperwork to try something, as we say, right? So you're telling me this thing with Vicky was when? This is a couple months ago, right? Just a couple months ago. And now, and here the best part about it, police officers. Well, sorry, alleged. Let's use a politically correct term here, right? Don't want no lawsuit. Good. Alleged, right? Let's use it. Right? Let me see. Right. So, and right, a group of police officers showed up at the Port of Spain State Prison, and for some reason, I'm not hearing anything about these police officers. Oh, sorry. Alleged. No lawsuit, right? So I am saying, and it goes back to the issue of cameras in the prison, as in security cameras. There are so many things that we can do. And somebody, this guy calls 107 quite often. And there's a point he made, and I love the point. I just want to just say it today. Is anyone who's listening, this again is about political will. He said a particular supermarket, I think it's the one by Grand Bazaar, that'll be Extra Foods. He said in that supermarket, he says that you cannot make a phone call in there. You cannot. And from what he understands, it is a means of, it's a security measure that they've taken, right? Based on what he says, again, it can be verified, that they have taken, to avoid any sort of illegal activity while in the supermarket. Right? And, they would do something like that because if you remember, of course, the brutal murder of the owner of that supermarket many, many years ago. Right? So the question he was asking, and he asks all the time, is that if it could be done in a supermarket, Why cannot it be done at our nation's prisons? Political will. Political will. But hey, this is, as I say, sweet TNT. Sweet like diabetes. We like it so. And when we get sick, now we want to run by the doctor. The doctor will give us proactive measures of not reaching to this place, whereby that we have to be reading this nonsense in the 21st century that's happening in our national security system. Because we're not proactive, we're reactive. And because we're active, we're reacting like children. Anyhow, moving on. Moving on swiftly. 400 more on the breadline. Point Lisas alone, over the last 2 to 3 years, in terms of manpower, will have seen probably close to 2,000 or more people on the breadline. And I'm saying this to all the various entities. And I'm saying this in particular right now to CNC. You made a statement, loyal workers. Loyal workers. Whatever you do, and yes, it may be a situation where you cannot keep them, okay. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. Ensure that when you send these workers home, at least you send them with a peace, knowing that you care. And I say that to the extent that you put something in place to buffer the blow of what is going to be for the next few months while they get themselves together. Yes, because I'm saying that because what happened with Arsenal Matal, up to when I had started the show here, almost a year had passed, and there were people who were still waiting for packages, still waiting for some sort of compensation. Please, please do not let that be the case with your 110 loyal workers, as you all identified as. Because I'm sure that something can be put in place to buffer the next few months and not down the road. Give it to them now. Just so you send them home now, give them something now that they can hold on to, so that the loyalty that you speak of would not be just words in the wind. Because if it's that, then we know what will happen. It will just be taken away, blown away, no substance. Let your words have substance, and let your words take root in their hearts, so that they will know, you know what, despite it all, they cared. Sure you care, in one way or the other. Whether the next few months you see they can get a voucher to get food at a supermarket or something to show that you care. Because the workers at Arsenal Matal, they did not experience that care to a very large extent. And I spoke to some of them personally, know what I'm telling you. A couple of them, one in particular, committed suicide after months of not hearing anything from the company. So let's do the right thing. All right? Good. Let's take a break. Or before we take the break, again, this situation with the Mr. Larry Nassar. Somebody made a statement in the story that I didn't use. This was one of the follow-up stories, and they're making the point that it is high time that these cases are not swept under the carpet, right? And I'm saying this, and I'm gonna close on this segment on this one. We should learn something from this particular sentencing in Trinidad and Tobago, yeah, because there are many people in high places. I live there. High in other things too, but in high places who others in high places know that they're doing high-handed things, right? We know about certain murders where it has been allegedly linked to high-handed people or high-handed things. Akil Chamber, yeah, we've heard so, we've seen the reports. Nothing has been done. And then you have many other instances of children being abused in different strata of the society, and nothing is being done, right? So let's look at this as an example, TNT, and protect our children. We have just about a minute before should we take a break and go through it one time, or what shall we do? All right, let's take a break. When we come back, introduce you to our first of the encore presentations of Where is the Church? We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Reverend Valerie Ramkalawan from the Christ Approved Revival Tabernacle. You can tune on every first and last Wednesday of the month on ACT and The Voice. And I'm there 10:30 p.m. 15 minutes, you can tune on and you can be filled with the word of the Lord. Come on and be a part of this station in Jesus' name. God bless you.
All right, for those looking us on our Facebook page, I know there was a post, but I believe the system has been restored by Flow. So you can log on Facebook on our ACTN page, and you can view the rest of the program. What we're going to right now is our first in our encore presentation of Where is the Church, as we address some of the issues of the social ills in TNT and the voice of the church. Something the voice has been silenced, whereby others are saying people don't want to hear the church. So first, we start things off with the head, the National Elder Director of the Open Bible Standard Churches, Reverend Benjamin Egar, will take us straight to the end of the show. And tomorrow, God's willing, for the entire hour, we have Ms. Nicole Balancing Holder. So first, enjoy our first installment with Reverend Egar. Good evening and welcome to this special presentation of Cloud9 on ACTN The Voice. And the question we're asking today is, where is the church? And I'm here with the National Elder Director of the Open Bible Standard Churches, Reverend Benjamin Egar. How are you, sir? And a happy new year to you.
All the best to you,
Thank you for accommodating us. The country right now, they have many questions and they're turning to the church for answers. Yeah. So the question many have been asking is, where is the church? I remember one person said to me, we were having a conversation, and they made the point that the church is not silent, it's that people are not listening. Now, that being said, we have to also face the reality that many initiatives have been taking place recently by various arms, whether it be Open Bible, Power, New Testament, to come together. And the general consensus is that we have to come together because there have been some level of fragmentation and disconnect from the community. So there are those leaders who have admitted, you know what, there is a problem that we need to address. As we look at what's happening in our country right now, and as the leader of this organization representing the kingdom of God, what are some of your concerns as into the voice of the church right now?
Okay, well, first of all, let me say how I'm also saddened by the state of the country in terms of crime and what is happening. I'm very saddened, and it gives me great pain. I am now, given my age, I've grown up from seeing the country in a better state as far as crime is concerned to know where it is very difficult. Recently, before I answer directly your question, I remember, because I lived in East Dry River for a while, and that's Laventille, and I operated in Morven for a while. My wife is from there, and I pastor there now. I used to walk through and drive through the streets, and never a second thought about crime. Drop people home, and then a few years ago, I started to look over my shoulder, and it was not a good feeling, but that never used to happen. I mean, I remember the days when I walked the streets, and so it has affected me, and as a pastor or the head of an organization, you try your very best to see how best you can make an impact into the country. And I had an experience just a few years ago to help answer the question, where my car was stolen at gunpoint. And it wasn't in Mover, it wasn't one of those so-called hotspots. I lived in Mount Lambert, and a gentleman followed me, and when I was about to go into my gate, he came out with his gun, and he stole the vehicle. Well, of course, it's covered by insurance, but it was a very traumatic experience. And while he was driving away, I felt the Spirit of God said to me, if we do not do something about these young people, they will rise up and kill us. And at the end of that, what I did is that we started Sunday schools and kids clubs in every area that we could start. We started.
Of course, okay, Open Bible Church and so forth.
Open Bible churches. And we have encouraged every organization to do the same. The initiative that was taken a few years back by the government to help with preschools and so forth, we thought was a very good initiative. And we tried to get involved in that in terms of education. Because if we don't educate the young mind and bring a sense of moral value, I will never forget the words of one of our former president. And today we have lost one. We have lost one, and the funeral is around this time. But Mr. A.N.R. Robinson says, he spoke about spiritual values, and we have lost some of those morals and spiritual values. And it is almost like a rebuilding process, because if you take a child and that child has no knowledge of God, it's almost like an animal. So the value that he would place on a life, if there's no moral and spiritual value, he doesn't place that value on that life. So he can take that life and walk away with no sense of, remorse.
No conviction at all.
No conviction. So one of the things I feel must be done, and we are involved in that as a church, is education. When we talk about the church, we are not talking about one organization. If you check some of the great successes we have had over the years with education, most of it came from churches like the Presbyterians and some of these churches, the Anglicans. They are the ones who led in the area of education. So that is one way I feel. In those schools, for example, you would have religious education being taught. And that would have educated the conscience and the minds of people that will help them live a clean life. Some of that is slowly going away
Coming
from
out of the
us.
system.
Coming out of the system. And a few years ago, I felt we made a decision that may not have been the best. We stopped corporal punishment in the school. And then there's pressure from societies outside of Trinidad to take God almost out of the curriculum. And Ras Shorty I, in one of his great calypso, says, you kick the creator out. They didn't want his name in them out.
That song, and I was making reference to that, on the show last week, that they referred to Ras Shorty as a madman. And many refer to Christ when he walked the earth as a madman too. And again, you're seeing the parallel there. I'm just making the point that you're seeing the fruit of what he's said, and it's not good fruit, it's poisonous fruit. And we have to admit that he was right. God gave him a vision and he was right.
Of course. I remember, as I said, I've lived long enough to see changes in our country. I remember when we frowned upon somebody who was pregnant outside of wedlock. We frowned upon it as a society. I'm not just talking about the church now. That is now commonplace. Commonplace to the point where we have even made legislation as a country. I wouldn't say to encourage it, but we made allowance for it. So the society has changed. And there's a breakdown in society. And when we are talking about what is the church doing, every time we preach the gospel and someone is converted means that they have left their lifestyle and they are now living a different lifestyle. We have made a serious indentation in the crime situation. Because I can tell you where I pastor in Mover presently. Although I'm the national director of the country, I'm also a pastor. And in my community, the scores of young men who would have turned around to Jesus, you talk to them and you hear the story, they were runners for drug men, who were involved in drugs and crime. And every one of them that got converted turned away from their lifestyle and they started to live a righteous life. I have young men who they are now police officers, they are now army officers, they have gone back to school, men and women, when they had no sense of direction and no sense of value and they felt life was a mess. We have been able, through our programs and generally the gospel and sharing Christ, we have been able to turn their lives around and help them to find Christ. So every time someone is converted, you're talking about a serious dent into the area of crime. I wish to God that I can convert more people, because I have seen how Jesus can make the difference in someone's life. So in terms of the church, we are involved in education. And I say we, the church in general, and that has been a major trust. We are also in almost every community, the church is there.
Go ahead.
And the church is helping to preschools and also to, every time a church door opens, we're giving people a chance to get to know Christ. And in doing so, an opportunity to change their life around. And so in a very real sense, although we don't blow our trumpet, the church is having an impact. Are we doing enough? We can do more. There's always room for improvement. And if you ask me, we have gone away from our communities. And I would like to see the church more involved in our communities.
Where do you think that shift took place, whereby it was all about, mainly about community, but now, again, as we mentioned in the beginning, there seems to be some level of disconnect with some communities and some churches, even to the point whereby now the body of Christ in itself is a community, and there seems to be a dissecting there as well. When you look at some churches or some congregations, there's disconnect even within the church. And that, of course, now, the church is like the heartbeat of our country. We can understand when Christ made his declaration, his statement, on this rock I'll build my church, that's the heartbeat of a people. And that heartbeat seems to be slowly being affected and diminishing in some areas. Where did that shift take place, whereby now, as much as some churches want to reach out, there seem to be a weakening somewhere, and again, we're doing this to find answers. What do you believe? As you say, you've been around for a very long time. You've seen things in the spirit. What is happening in the church that there seems to be this disconnect generally?
Well, there are a few things. One is a fear factor.
It's scary though, if fear is...
but we're all human beings. I'll give you an example. One of our churches recently went into a community to evangelize. And that same evening, gunshots were firing not too far from them. Now, these are human beings.
Well, yeah, understood.
And the fear factor, some of them got frightened. And now you are as a pastor trying to motivate people. Let's go back to the community. But they are also concerned about their safety. So that is one of the things that is a factor. It's not the only factor. It may not be the main factor, but that's one. Another thing is that maybe the church, we have had a lot of indoor programs. And rather than understand that we need to be salt and light, and salt is of no value if it is not scattered or sprinkled among where things are.
And the Great Commission says to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
See? So I feel we can do a lot more. We can do a lot better in terms of going to the communities. We have lost that influence that we should have in the community. I honestly feel so. Not in every case, but I feel the church needs to get back. For example, play football with young men. Visit your neighbor. If I live in a neighborhood, I should build a good relationship with my neighbors, and that way I can influence them for Christ.
Because one thing I know, and I can speak for the Open Bible Church, where they won the football fiesta this year. When I looked at the composition of the team, a few of them don't attend the church. But Josiah Austin, and they have been using this tool of football to at least minister to them. So that was interesting. But there now, I know that could be a challenge, but it is a good outlet because again, with this victory now, they feel a sense of connectivity, and
Yeah.
So even though they've had their challenges, it's a tool, and it's a
Yes.
tool that can be used.
Yes, there are different tools. Education, as I say, is one. Sports is another. For example, in my community, one of the main things we have is sports. So we try to get involved, and a lot of the guys who have gotten converted came through sports. I played sports when I was younger, of course, when I was younger. But as you get older, but I have been training others to do it, to play sports, and that way you can influence guys around you. Sometimes people get converted, and unfortunately, they leave the community so much behind that they lose their influence. So we have to find a bridge, or we have to find a way of understanding, these are my brethren, these are my friends. I can't completely leave them behind. I have to find a way to influence them into the things of God. And the church must continue to educate its people how that should be done. You see? So I feel that's one way the church can help. Now, another thing that recently happened about 2 years ago, we came together to have a march in the nation. And one of the things I said to the guys, I said, listen, we have prayed, we have marched, but there are things that are disturbing us in the country. Look at the judiciary, for example. Right now, there's some convulsions in the judiciary. But the law and the fact and justice is the main issue why we are at this stage in the country's position with crime. When a sentence, the Bible says, is not done speedily, people are bent to do more evil. That is a reality to this country. We have had slow justice and sometimes none at all. Take for example, a young man goes into the remand yard because he's caught, let's say, for a crime. That crime may carry a penalty for 2 years or 5 years maximum. Yet still he spends 3 and 4 and sometimes 5 years on a remand yard without even a trial. So you have exposed him to hardened criminal in some cases. You take him out of his family setting. What happens to his family? Sometimes the person may not even be guilty because the person is innocent until proven guilty. Yet still you take him out of that setting. His family is now exposed to more danger. He becomes a hardened criminal in that situation, and sometimes for a petty crime. So the very system,
It's literally feeding that root of bitterness and resentment.
you see. So if we have to correct the issue of crime in this country, it has to be seen, there has to be a partnership where all parties, be it government, be it social, be it church, all parties must take some measure of responsibility. And we must say, what can we all do now to correct the issues?
Now I know that any government, as the case may be, they cannot survive without the input of the church. However, I know it has been a challenge for the church as a body to really meet with in terms of on a level field, or in terms of with the government and so forth, not of the day, but just generally. Are you seeing breakthrough in that area for the church?
It's
in terms of
difficult.
meeting and coming to some sort of common ground whereby both parties, understand that this is about growth and it's about putting nation first, or is it continue to be a case of just butting heads?
I think there's still a case of button heads. I don't know if the church is seen as being relevant. And because of that, sometimes the church is seen as relevant when they're looking for votes. But after the votes are cast and people are in government, I feel there is an absence of consultation or taking the church seriously. And recently we had a D-Day, a prayer D-Day. We joined with others at the Woodford Square. And one member, although we sent out invitation, one member of government came because I don't think they see the value of prayer.
I think for the Healer Land event also, one I think came out as well. One
You see?
or two, yeah.
So we need to understand that this situation that the country is in didn't come overnight. And there's a number of reasons why we are in the state. And a lot of us, all of us, including the church, must take some measure of responsibility.
We mentioned butting heads before. Now, recently, there were 3 Madam Justices that were appointed.
Yeah.
All 3 are believers. One of them actually attended our church, Madam Justice Gail Gonzalez. And we're making the point that there's certain mountains as believers that we must take.
Yes.
Because of this butting heads and because of our understanding that this is warfare that we're in. You mentioned that when the church went on that day to evangelize and the fear is natural. That is a natural human response. But do you also believe that some believers are wary because of the constant battle that you go through when you're put in a particular place of authority, and they sometimes shy away from it? Because we need believers in the government, we need them in the
All strata of society.
all areas,
Yeah.
but for some reason many shy away.
Well,
And-
you see, let's take politics. If the way our political system is constructed, if I get into politics and I'm with a party, I have to toe the party line. So there are people who goes into power, in some cases, some believers, and when they get there, from what I understand and what has been said, it is constant pressure to stand up for what you believe. Pressure is put on them to toe the line. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately, believers who should stand up doesn't always stand up. And that is a sad
Because that's the thing, and that's what I'm saying. There's a serious eroding of the faith.
Yeah.
And only recently we heard from Pastor Austin in First Church here about what is faith, and if as believers we understand what faith is, then there's no reason to fear amidst persecution. And if you read the book of Acts and all of that. So how does the leadership of our churches now make believers understand that you cannot allow fear to cripple you? Because again,
I feel people who have good intention, but because they are not be easily turned. You see, so I would like to see that people wrong very easily. On emotions rather than on practic teaching. Is discipled to understand this is what the Bible says, and whether you go to university, whether you in society, whether you account for your faith. I would like to know
to affect our church in terms of, and you find now that some people are, when you hear how they speak, and people might say it's a non-issue. It's not a non-issue because it's all part of the whole of where we are today. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, we seem not to be able to stand up for our faith and our belief. And another factor I think we must include, and we think of crime and how to solve it, is that we are in the last days, what Jesus referred to as the last days. And when you take the general concept of the last days, there's a constant eroding of values and of morals. So you read Romans 1, and Romans tells you because they refused to acknowledge God and retain God in the knowledge, He gave them over to a reprobate mind. And they begin to do things that were not convenient, including murder. I was trying to think about murder recently, and I realized it's a state where we have degenerated to that state where we have lost value of human life. We take a life and we just walk away. But it's not just that. Another thing that I feel must be factored in as we talk crime and have solutions. There are people who want to divorce themselves from as though it's not me, it's them black boys or it's them people in the hot spots. And they pull themselves away. But some of them are as guilty as anyone else. And I'll tell you what I'm referring to.
Sure.
Many times we hear of people being caught bringing in guns and bringing in drugs into this country. How many of them are brought to justice? But the young man who smoked the weed, I'm not saying is right, or the young man who commits a petty crime finds himself in jail and spending years. Yet still those who brought in the guns in the first place and brought in the drugs in the first place goes away unscathed. That is not justice. And all these things affect people. You know, we were doing a survey recently, and hear what some of these young men are saying on the street. Look at them big boys, all of them getting away with their stupidness. What are you telling me? Don't tell me nothing. That was their attitude. Are they right? No, they're not right. But I'm saying, when they see people at that level going away, doing stuff and getting away with it, they start saying, you are unfair to us because you're persecuting us. And those who are committing the crime, they are not being persecuted. Where all these guns are coming from? Where all these drugs? Oh, we have a porous, look at another thing. We have a porous country. All over our country, guns and drugs are coming into our country. That's affecting our lifestyle. So I am saying, if the country has to improve, all of us must take responsibility. The government has to take responsibility. Whether it's national security, look at corruption. It has become systemic in our country. You go to get your house wired and you want to get a connection, you pay to get a fast connection. So all of those things are crime. Crime is not just murders.
I think that's where we miss the mark with that. Crime is bigger than what we just see being plastered. And even the media at times, they are guilty of portraying one aspect of crime for the purpose of selling points.
For a few dollars more. Look, let's think about, I mean, I feel the media is a tremendous tool, can be used to help this nation. But the media has also helped to introduce not the best values in the country.
Because they're no longer solution based.
You see, and it's money where I can get that few dollars more. So whether I have to push people committed violence on the screen. I remember Mr. Pandey saying a few things, one of our former Prime Minister. He spoke about half-truth and innuendos. He also spoke about the kind of shows we're exposing our children to. Mr. Pandey said those things when he was the Prime Minister. But it's dollars that counts. And sometimes because of that, we throw away these kind of values in society.
And you mentioned in the beginning about values, because if you look at social media today, what we're seeing today is the fruit of our ignorance and arrogance, because again, we fed a certain culture now in Trinidad and Tobago, and now what we're reaping, we don't want to see it anymore, because we even have, media professionals and professionals alike who are engaging in this sort of bitter talk, and we don't seem to care anymore.
And things have been now coming to the surface. For example, look, recently there's been a whole uproar about women now confessing about how many of them were abused and raped and all of that in society. It's now coming out. And the people who, when you check where it is coming, it's a sad position when so many women were abused to keep their job. So I'm saying society must be careful how we point fingers. Now, as a church, as a member of the church, I'm saying yes, we have to do more. If you ask me some things I would like to see happen, as I mentioned before, I would like to see us be more salt and light and influence society. For example, I believe we are gifted to go into every strata of society. I want to see more Christians in politics. I want to see more Christians in the police force, so at least we could have some kind of I know there are many Christians there,
But how active are they?
That's right.
That's the key, though. Yeah.
and the pressure that is I mean, I had a situation where my car was stolen, and I went and speaking to the police, and they tell me my case, I had to lie to make it a stronger case. Yeah, because you know the way it's and you see, we have to stand up for truth. So I'm saying we would like to see Christians in all strata of society. And when God put them there, they need to understand they have a responsibility to stand up for truth and righteousness. If we can get that, I feel we'll do better. Whether you're in school as a student or as a teacher, or whether you're in a grocery, or whether you're in security, whatever area you're in, we need believers to stand up for their belief, right? And if we do that, we can have a better society. Another thing I feel we can do, all of us as we would have a sphere of influence around us. This is not necessarily being in the church. Once you name the name of Christ, you in your village, in your community, in the people that you talk to, all of us should live a life of such joy and peace and harmony that we can influence people around us. So I am responsible for my children in the first instance, and my family and my friends and those around me, and of course being a minister, I'm responsible. I have a bigger hat to wear. But I'm saying the least I can do is be a good neighbor, be a good father, be a good husband, you know. And if I can do those things, I will influence those around me. And if we all do that, then I feel we have a chance to turn things around.
My last couple of questions to you before we close our interview this evening. In terms of the various arms, you know, Open Bible, Power, etc., have you seen, you know, a greater collaboration over the years? And because that has been a concern as well.
No, we have had, for example, Pastor Ali, God bless his heart, he introduced Pentecost for the last few years, and all the churches we have been fasting and praying around Pentecost. That is a significant move. We were down at D-Day with Brother Duncan, who he is the one organizing this, and we went and we prayed together. Sister Shockness, who has been praying with pastors once a month. So all these are efforts, and then we have in different areas, we have different pastoral groups coming together beyond just one organization. So there's some beautiful things happening. I could talk about Operation Salvation.
Right. Yeah.
That's in my area, and that comprises a number of churches who are not just one organization. So there are a number of things happening. Do we need to do more? Yes. But they're not. For example, recently we started initiatives like trauma counseling. We go into the